Hey, Chris here with another edition of the CritCast. I know it's been a couple of weeks since the last recording, and I know I keep talking about trying to get into a regular routine of recording these things, but it just hasn't quite happened yet. Anyway, July is here, which means we are halfway through 2012, which means we're pretty much halfway through the movies we're going to get for this year. So I thought it would probably be a good idea to take a look back at what I've thought of to be the best films that I've seen from the first half of the year. Um, and just about guarantee that any list that you see or any other people that you read about are probably not going to be quite the same as my list. My list is probably going to be pretty different than everyone else's. Um, you see, I kind of consider myself what I've come to call a cinematic optimist. That I tend to look for the good things in films, even good or bad or indifferent. There's always something good about these movies, something in the acting or in the story or in the way it's told or something that appeals to me. So it seems that more often than not I like more movies than I don't like. Uh, you know, it's just the way it is. I just gonna have to deal with it. It's just the way I am. Anyway, free to take a look at some of these films, and uh, I hope you either check them out and see if you like them the way I do. I don't know if you will or not, but hey, you never know. Um, let's kick things off right and start with a movie that's probably not going to appear on anyone else's list, be it mid-year, end-of-year, any type of list, and that's going to be Piranha 3 Double D. Yes, Piranha 3 Double D. That movie is one of the most ridiculous things I've seen. It's hard to defend as a good movie, but there's something about it. There's an energy about it. There's a everything but the kitchen sink kind of quality to it. There's blood, nudity, gore, language, utterly ridiculous situations. David Hasselhoff playing himself. It's just one of those movies that is so much fun. I had a blast seeing this in the theater, and if you like cheesy B horror, this is definitely going to be one you're going to want to see. It's crazy. It's unlike anything you'll probably likely to see in quite some time. Moving up on down the list, we have a movie from earlier this year from Steven Soderbergh called Haywire. It's a film that's a typical, spy thriller revenge kind of story, but there's something about the way this movie is told. There's something lyrical in the way that it's structured. You have an imperfect narrator telling the story, so you're getting just the pieces that you need, not everything that you necessarily want. And it's a very stylish film. There's some very good sound design in it. It stars former MMA fighter Gina Carano, who gives a really good performance and brings a real legitimacy to the fights. The action is well done. It's one of those movies that is. It seems familiar, but there's something different about it, and it really drew me in. And it's one of those movies that turns out to be one of the best movies I've seen so far. Clearly, it's on the list. Moving on up to number 8, we have another action film. This one called The Raid Redemption. And I'm sorry I keep looking away. I have my computer over here with the list of films, so I try to remember where I am in my list. Anyway, The Raid Redemption is one of the craziest pure action films I've seen in some time. It's about this police squad that raids this building that's run by this criminal mastermind guy, and he pretty much unleashes anyone who lives in that apartment building onto the cops, basically putting a bounty on their heads. And it's not so much the story. I mean, the story is really simple. It's another one of those movies it's the way it's staged, it's the way the action is done. There's something of it's more brutal and action packed than anything you see from Hollywood. The film's from I believe from Indonesia, and it's just exciting. It's action packed. It's just a blast. If you like action movies, this is like old school full contact action, and it really deserves to be checked out. Moving on up the list, up to number 7 is The Silent House, which I know a lot of people probably didn't care for, but I thought it was fantastic. It's one of those movies that it's a faked single take, in that when you watch it, it looks like it's just one single camera movement for the entire 80 or 90 minutes of the movie. But it's actually, there were a couple, I believe there are 10 cuts that they hide in, like, swish pans or in darkness. Um, but it's really quite fantastic. And it features a really good lead performance from, oh man, why is her name escaping me? I'm sorry. I'll have to tag the photo of the video or something. But the lead performance is really good. It's one of those things that, it's intense, it's emotional, it's scary. It's really very well done, and should really be checked out because it's also very stylish. Moving along is probably one of the best superhero films ever made, and that is The Avengers. I know there are a few people out there that didn't like it, but there's something about it that they really capture what these superheroes are, what it's like to make a big action film with superheroes. You have, it shows that you can make a movie that has that's overstuffed with characters and still make it interesting, and be able to give all the characters the time they deserve on the screen. I have to give a lot of credit to Joss Whedon, who wrote and directed the film. Yeah, because he just knocked it out of the park, and hopefully this guy will finally get a little more respect in Hollywood. In any case, it was just so much. What can I say? It was a lot of fun. They captured the essence of the characters, as well as making it fun. I'm starting to repeat myself. Anyway, The Avengers. Let's move on. Next up is actually another superhero film, which is, I'm probably going to be one of the very few people that like the movie. It's Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. And yes, I really like this movie. This movie is off the wall insane. It's pure stream of consciousness. It's very like an old school, like, grindhouse actiony kind of thing, that they just throw everything in the kitchen sink on the screen. It was made by the guys that made Crank, so it sort of makes sense. But really, it's a movie I can't really explain. I mean, Nicolas Cage takes it and just goes so far over the top that no one goes crazy like that guy. And I have a whole new respect for Cage, and I know a lot of people don't like him, but we need people like him on the screen, and this proves it. It's also a big step up from the first film. A better design of the Ghost Rider, a better design of the motorcycle, a leaner, meaner story that just really just goes crazy and doesn't explain anything, and just keeps moving with this unstoppable forward momentum. It's just fantastic. We're getting there. Next up is a new one from Wes Anderson, is Moonrise Kingdom. I'm not really the biggest fan of Wes Anderson, but this movie it's different, it's unique, it's very Anderson, I guess you could say, and it's probably my favorite from his filmography, although I do admit that I probably should go back and revisit some of those films, especially with World Tenenbaums, which I have yet to see. In any case, Moonrise Kingdom has a really good cast featuring Bruce Willis and Edward Norton and Bill Murray and Frances McDormand. It's just really good from top to bottom. It's this really oddball fantasy fairy tale kind of thing, where you have two kids who run away into the forest, and to try to, I don't know if it's like, enjoying the last moments of innocence before, with the oncoming onslaught of adolescence, as depicted in the film, by a storm that's going to be bearing down on the island where they live. But beyond, the style is very flat, very matter of fact, very colorful. It's very Wes Anderson, and I know that's probably going to turn some people away, while it's going to make other people just fall in love with it. And it's very stylish, it's very different, it's very weird, and it's definitely worth checking out. Almost there. Next up is The Grey, the Liam Neeson film from earlier this year, where you have a borderline suicidal security worker on an oil drilling up in Alaska, whose plane crashes, and him and his few survivors are beset upon by a pack of wolves. It's really like a nightmare. It's him trying to deal with his own humanity, his own everything that's come up in his life, how he tries to deal with it, and it's really it's a survivalist tale. You can look at it that way, but it's also a very personal tale of a guy trying to make sense of his own life, and it's really, really good. Next up, number 2 for the year is probably, I'm going to be another one who's the only person who really likes it as much as this, is Cabin in the Woods. Another Joss Whedon film. Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, who also, I believe, wrote Cloverfield. Cabin in the Woods is this amazing deconstruction of the horror genre. It's funny, it's intelligent. It takes the tropes that we know of the genre of that cabin, of the odd set of friends that really probably wouldn't be friends in the real world, and it just turns everything on its ear. It's not what you expect. It's fantastic. It's bloody, it's funny, it's intelligent. It takes a look at the horror genre in a way that the horror films really haven't done in recent years, and I guess it's a call to arms. It's a, hey, we can still make great horror movies, and this is one of them. And number 1, I know there's a lot of people who don't like it, a lot of people who do, and a lot of people who are probably floating somewhere in the middle. It's Prometheus. It's a movie that the line I have to that best describes it for me is that in its imperfection, I have seen perfection. The movie is not perfect. It has some odd character motivations, some odd way that things are drawn or things are done, things that happen that probably don't make a whole lot of sense. The fact that it asks a lot of questions without answering them. For me, this movie really speaks to that human condition where we're always looking for answers. We're always looking for that knowledge, but we're not always going to get it. And that's what it really feels like in that film. And besides the fact that Ridley Scott and I believe it was Dariusz Wolski, the cinematographer, have made this absolutely stunningly gorgeous film. I mean, it looks fantastic. There's some great lead performances from Noomi Rapace and from Michael Fassbender. It's a movie that, again, it asks questions. It doesn't really answer everything. It gives a lot of hints and bits and pieces and things that you can piece stuff together, like for these motivations and stuff. And this I like to think that we question characters' motivations and what they do in a film, but while it may not necessarily seem logical, I don't think there's really any way you could predict how someone would react in any given situation without being that person in that situation. It's the kind of thing like when somebody's behind the door ready to come out and scare the person walking in, and you're like, hey, that person is stupid. They're gonna walk in that door. How do you know that they don't know there's anyone there? They don't really have any reason to be afraid of it. So it's with that mindset that I kind of watch this film and movies in general. That while it might not seem logical, it may not make sense, it might make sense to the character within the frame of the movie because, well, they don't know any better. They don't have the knowledge that we have. They don't have the hindsight that we have as an audience. So, in any place, Prometheus is an amazing film. It's gorgeous to look at. There's all sorts of thematic stuff that's really interesting, and plus the fact that it's like a prequel, but not a prequel to the Alien franchise, and seeing those ties in are really fantastic as well. That pretty much wraps up my top 10 for the year so far. There are a few other films I should probably mention that are also quite good but didn't quite make it. Films like Jeff Who Lives at Home, Dictator, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, Hunger Games, Woman in Black, 5-Year Engagement, even Magic Mike. These are all good films that are definitely worth checking out on the big screen if you get a chance, or if you have or hadn't already, or see them any way you want. That pretty much, those are probably the top films for the year so far. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the second half as we get through the rest of the summer films and into the fall Oscar season to see what they have in store for us. But anyway, I hope you like this list, and be sure to let me know what you think. Be sure to visit me over at criticaloutcast.com, and I'll see you next time.